Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. I'm your watch guy today. You join me today on a really warm Sunday afternoon, Sunday night actually. It's about 9 o'clock and it's still about 24 degrees. I'm British, I'm not made for this. I'm starting to burn bad. Anyway, British moaning out of the way. Today I'm reviewing Cadison's latest model. We all know Cadison. They brought us the first Royal Oak homage on the market, or the first viable, interesting Royal Oak homage on the market. Now they've updated their Royal Oak homage and they've provided it with a chronograph movement. Now this one comes in much cheaper than the Pagani Design Automatic that I reviewed earlier on this year. But the question that I'm left with, the question that I'm trying to answer for myself is this one better? So before I turn this camera around and we can try and answer that question, let's do some housekeeping. I've received this watch for free from the featured store on AliExpress. I have linked them in the description. That is an affiliate link. If you buy a watch through that link, then I get a little bit of a kickback. I'm very grateful for that. You don't pay any extra if you use that, however. With that out of the way, let's turn this camera around and let's try and answer that question. So guys, this is the Cadison Royal Oak chronograph homage from the featured store. That's who's provided it to me. I haven't actually seen it on many stores. I've obviously seen it there, but they got in contact with me and asked if I would like to review this piece. Just tighten that up there. Now, it is available on their store for £64.39 at the minute. It was on a special offer last week. I think it went down to £54. So it may be up to you if you want to wait for one of their flashed sales or just go for it straight away. £10 is a little bit of a difference when you talk about such tight margins. So one of the biggest differences between this and the Pagani Design is the size. This is stated as a 42mm watch. The Pagani Design is a 40mm. So I've had my trusty calipers out and I've measured this watch so we can get an accurate read on it. Now it is 42mm in diameter on the casing. However, if you include these crown guards here on this casing, it does come to 44mm. Now it does wear quite well on my wrist. I'll show you that later on, but yeah, it is getting to be in a bigger watch, but still wearable for us smaller wrist gents. Now one thing that it does do well is pack in a very tight height on this one. It is 12mm thick, which brings it just outside the under a cuff type of look, but it does give a nice wearable look to wrist. They packed a lot into that small 12mm. The lugs are a weird one for me to measure. Obviously, these are integrated to the casing. You're definitely not going to be swapping this strap out or this bracelet out. So I measured these lugs here and they're 24mm. However, as I say, I don't know how you're going to fit another bracelet to that. Lug to lug, again, is a weird one to measure. So I measured the casing, lug to lug, here to here. That is 48mm. However, I did think it was probably wise for me to measure the end links also, and that comes in at a 54mm length. However, if you look at the side profile, you can see that these do come down to the wrist very well. They have a very sharp angle on them, which does help the wearability, so it doesn't really feel like a 54mm lug to lug watch. So let's talk about the casing. Now I believe this is going to be 316L stainless steel. However, weirdly enough, it has been listed on the featured store as 304L stainless steel. Now, I've never heard of that before. I imagine they are quite close to each other. I don't know if one's cheaper than the other, but I just thought that'd be a tidbit to put in there just to make sure. We have some really lovely brushing on the casing of this watch. Now on my Pagani Design variant of this, of the automatic version, the brushing was off to the side. I am glad to report that Cadison haven't made that same mistake. This is well finished, heavily finished, but well finished. It does give it that heavy Audemars type of look. The brushing on an Audemars is quite heavy. We have vertical brushing on the side of this watch. I do prefer horizontal brushing for the sides of my watches, but I suppose this isn't too bad. We have little pieces of polish accents around this watch, as you can see here on the tip of the lug and over this side, and more notably around the bezel. This is a fixed bezel. It's fully brushed in the same type of manner as the casing, the head of the casing anyway. We have these faux screws. In fact, I'm saying faux screws. I don't know if they are faux, but I presume that they are. Obviously in this octagonal type of Audemars style, however, I believe it's got more of a circular feel to it. I feel like it's more rounded than the Audemars. One thing that Caddisson have brought closer to the Audemars feel is this crown, the guards and the pushers. Now, obviously these pushers are for this chronograph hand. This is a VK63 movement. That is a Seiko movement. It does get a little bit of hate on the market. However, I quite like the VK series. I think that they have a really solid place in watchmaking. Push that back and flick it back to position. Now we have bolt style heads or covers to the pushers on this one. They are polished tips also. That gives it a really nice design feature. However, they are not screw in. As you can see, do not move in any way, but they do give a nice little bit of design to this watch. The crown is also now an octagonal style, which does make it feel more like the Audemars homage that we're trying to get here. It is signed with the Caddisson logo and is surrounded by these rather robust crown guards. However, these don't cover the entire crown itself. The crown is quite chunky in stature. It is quite a feature on this watch. As we move to the case back, we don't have the display case back on this one. Obviously, you don't really see a display case back on a quartz watch. This time we just have a sandblasted feel to it with the Caddisson logo in the center and the model number below, C8189G. I mean, I don't think we'll be quoting that very much. I think this is just going to be the Caddisson chronograph. I think that's probably more suitable, to be honest. Now that is a screw down case back, and this crown is also a screw down crown. Together they provide this watch with 100 meters of water resistance, which I think is quite suitable for this style. I wouldn't expect any higher, or any less would have been slightly disappointing. This crystal is a sapphire crystal, is a flat sapphire crystal on this one. Now that leads us into this dial that this crystal covers. There's a lot going on here. I mean, there's a lot of design features in this watch. You can see this box type of style to the dial, which is a really nice silver type of reflection to it. We have a lot of small textures in between those boxes that you won't notice on the actual renderings of this watch or the pictures of it online, but they're certainly there in person. The Caddisson logo is printed to the 12 o'clock with a stylized logo above. We have applied indices surrounding the dial of this watch. Up at the 12 o'clock, we have double batons, and we have batons fulfilling the rest of the indices. Over at the 3 and 9, 6, we have shorter batons to allow for these sub-dials. Now the batons are actually rather curved at the point. They have a stainless steel polish type of border to them, and the centers are loomed. We have a minute track around the outer edge of the dial, and it actually seems to be set on a different level, slightly above the dial, slightly above those cutaways for the boxes. Now it's a very simple design for the minute track, but I do think that it's very, very nice to see on the outer edge of this dial. I feel like it gives it a little bit of extra. Now one thing to mention is that Caddisson have come back to this design and really done it out of the park this time. I think that this is a level above the last variant of this watch, the automatic version. These sub-dials are also rather nice. They have a type of vinyl record effect to them with the indicators on the outer edge. We have the 24-hour indicator to this side here near the crown. I like to have a 24-hour indicator on my watches. Over here we have the chronograph minute hand, and down at the 6 we have the ticking second hand. Now I don't mind a ticking second hand, especially when it's so small, but that will be a jumping up point for a lot of people. A lot of people just don't like quartz watches, just don't see a point for them. Personally, I think that you need a good quartz watch in any collection. You really do. The date window is positioned between the 4 and 5 o'clock. Quite an unusual positioning for that. It is a simple white date wheel on this one, And either side of the 6 o'clock, we have Japan movement, which obviously indicates that Seiko movement in the back of this watch. Now, one thing that I am hoping for on this piece is improved lume. So without further ado, let me turn the lights off and let's see what we have. So I'd say they've probably improved slightly on the last model. It's not the biggest improvement in the world. The hands are really the letdown on this one. The indices are quite well lit. However, the hands are quite patchy and not very well spread, the lume. That is slightly a letdown for me. As you can see, the chrono tip is actually lumed. However, I'm not too sure if that's so useful considering the other hands aren't. I mean, I guess it's better to have it than not to have it, but yeah, you see my point. Just to give you a little bit of relevance, this is the Hamilton Frogman unlumed. This is the Marm Dalton 2. That hasn't been in the light either. So this is charged, this lume shot, unlike those two. That's just to give you a little bit of an insight to it in comparison to other watches. So one thing that a lot of people will be asking is about the bracelet. Now, in the last version, I jumped on pretty quickly to the 46mm, and the biggest downside to the bracelet on that one was the sharp edges. It could cut you like a bloody knife, I tell you. I actually have a subscriber to the channel that I talk to quite often called Brian. He's actually resistant selling his version because he doesn't want anyone else to get cut up by the bloody bracelet. That's how bad it was. I'm glad to say though that they have massively improved this bracelet. As you can see, we have curved edges on the underside of the bracelet. The upper edges even aren't as sharp or boxed as the last version. They actually, you can run your fingers over them quite well. The curves to the underside of the bracelet are really the biggest improvement to this. It makes it much more comfortable to wear on wrist. Now, we do still have the butterfly clasp on this with the Cadison logo on one side. It has that sort of box type of look to it, and I'm going to give you the same type of complaint that I did in the last version of this, but I'll save that for my moan section. The bracelet fits quite well to my wrist actually. Let me pop it on wrist to show you. We do have solid end links on this one. They are push pins to adjust, which I don't mind at all. Now let's get this butterfly clasp out. Let's pop it on wrist. So as I mentioned earlier, 44mm when you include the crown guards, but on wrist, it actually feels really nice. I've worn this for a good week or two now, and I quite like it on wrist. It also gives you that quartz option in the collection. You know, I'm late for work, I need something quick, grab and go type of watch. That does that for me. Now, the end links of this bracelet really do help in the wearability as they are so heavily angled. This entire watch gives a very nice angular type of look to the design. Let me pop this off wrist. So yeah, it is very much improved. Now let me talk to you about the moan section before we get to the question of this versus the Pagani. So moans for this watch. Very much still disappointed with the lume. I do understand that is a very cheap watch. It's only £65. What more can I really expect for that type of price? But it's something that we still have to assess when we're reviewing watches. It's something that people really do like in their watches. They do like good lume shots. This one doesn't really provide it with that. It's a bit of a shame that the pushers are not screw-in. That would have been a really, really nice feature for me. Now, the bracelet, very much improved. However, they still have the same problem that I complained about last time, which was that the sort of pattern just dies as soon as it gets here. Why not carry those lines inwards to the rest of the bracelet at the very least? Just this link here. I don't understand that, to be honest. I feel like that's a half complete type of design. It's very unfortunate. Besides from that, I think this is a really solid option. I think they're going to sell a lot of these, to be honest. I think they're probably going to sell more of these than Pagani are going to sell of their automatic version at the moment. So really, I do need to get around to answering that question. Is this better than the Pagani Design automatic version? Well, it's about 40 quid cheaper. 30 quid when you look at the discounts that you can get on certain stores. And at £30 cheaper, yes, it's not an automatic movement, but the VK63 really is the quartz equivalent of the NH35. The prices aren't too far apart on those movements. I just don't think the Pagani really gives me the same type of feel as this one. In fact, I sold my Pagani because it didn't give me the same type of feel as this one. One thing to be noted though is that Pagani are going to be hitting back with their chronograph option of this watch. So that is one to look out for. But for now, I think Cadisen have taken the crown back. Maybe if Pagani come back with a 40mm option, I could be swayed, but they're going to have to do a lot of improvements in their version. So guys, that is the Cadisen Royal Oak Homage, the chronograph variant. So what are my final thoughts on this watch? Well, I preferred it to the Pagani design. The thing with the Pagani design is that they are charging a bigger premium for watches that are pretty much the same quality in my mind. I understand that they are trying to make slight improvements, but the version that I got was, the brushing was misaligned. It was absolutely horrific compared to the rest of the watch. So I just don't think it warrants that type of price, and I feel like that's leaving a slightly sour taste in a lot of consumers' mouths, mine in particular. I think that Pagani Design really do need to assess where they are in the market before they carry on with this type of premium line. I think they need to separate it completely from the Pagani Design brand, because Pagani Design are budget watches that do a lot more for the money, not budget watches that do exactly what you expect for the money. With that little rant about Pagani Design all the way back to Cadisen, I think they've nailed this. They've listened to every complaint that we've had. Maybe the loom wasn't in budget, but the biggest complaint that they had was this bracelet, and it is very much improved. It's very much nicer to wear than what it was. So I'm very glad about that. Also, the crown is much more improved. Also, the actual casing looks like the Royal Oak now. It looks a bit like, well, not the casing, but the profile of the casing with this side here. It looks much more towards the Audemars, which I am very glad about. But it's a very wearable watch. It's a very, very easy to throw on type of watch. I've really enjoyed it. So once again, Featured Store sent me this for free. Thank you very much to them. I'm hoping to work with them in the future once again. If you would like to pick this watch up, please do use that affiliate link in the description. It really, really does help the channel. I'm very grateful for every single one of you that uses that link. As you've probably seen in a recent video, it really does accumulate. So thank you very much. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.